Okay, so you guys had a chance to answer the do now, and we just went over the results of that. So to this class period, what we're going to be talking about is how do we write an effective DBQ essay. So we're about to embark on our first kind of writing assignment that's going to be graded as an assessment, and it's going to be a DBQ essay about the topic that we've just completed, the Neolithic Revolution. So before I ask you to just, okay, please go ahead and write me an essay, I would like to go over kind of what does an effective DBQ essay look like, what are the important components, and what is our understanding of those things. So that's what we're going to take a look at today. So first slide. Okay, so I will give you guys a second. Pay attention to the subtopic, pay attention to the details. There's not many of them. I'll give you a second, and then we will just kind of go over this real quick. Okay, so while you guys finish up, I know that many, if not all of you, have sat for a Regents before, or at least some of you. Actually, some of you might not have because, the U.S. History Regents, you didn't have to take it last year. So I don't know if you've ever seen a Regents exam, to be honest, but when you get a Regents exam in front of you, when you get to the DBQ section, classically, there's documents in there, and each of those documents have questions that go with them, just short answer questions. So the first thing you're going to have to do when you get a DBQ packet and an essay to write is you have to go in and you have to answer all the short answer questions that go with each document. On a Regents exam, for example, there's usually 9 or so documents, and each document has either 1 or 2 questions, short answer, that go with it. So as far as strategies for answering those, your answer to those DBQ short answer questions should and can contain direct quotes from the documents, or you are going to paraphrase in your answer. When we grade Regents exams, they tell us a student can literally copy down text exactly as it appears in the document into the answer. And that's, if all they have is just a direct verbatim quote of something they pulled out of the document, they can get credit for that. So your answer should or can contain direct quotes, or at the very least paraphrase. So there are some strategies that we can use to kind of make that easy. The first thing I do is I always kind of read the question before I read the document. This way, as I'm reading the document, I know what information I'm kind of on the lookout for. So once I read the question, I will then read the document with something to write with in my hand, and I will underline answers as I come across them for quick reference. And then basically what I do is I just go back and I write in complete sentences the answer based on what I've underlined in the document. So that's kind of the strategy that I use. But this is the first thing that we're going to have to address with a DBQ, is how to answer those short answer questions. And these are some strategies that might work for you as far as that goes. So next slide. I'll give you a second. Okay, I saw Uriel mention that you did take the U.S. History Regents. That's a good thing. Others that may not have, I'm sure you've seen tasks at the very least that are modeled after DBQs. At some point in the past. So we're going to start moving on to, after you answer the short answer questions, we're going to start talking about kind of how do we build this DBQ essay, what needs to be in there. One of the things that everyone mentioned in the do now was details and document evidence. You need evidence to back up claims. That was another big thing that we saw. And that's definitely true. So the first major component of your DBQ essay, the foundation of your writing, is document evidence. So essays must contain evidence contained in the documents. The task will make it clear how many pieces of document evidence you must use in your writing. So make sure you're always paying attention to the task. When you're taking document evidence and putting it into your writing, it is helpful to, cite your document. So I might just say, like, if you look at the second detail here, I know there's nothing in red, but I might just say, make a note of which document your evidence is coming from. Parentheses, document 3. So throw in the quote, and then in parentheses, just put document number blank. And there's a reason for this. This is a good habit to get into. I'm going to tell you a scary story really quick. When I was teaching in the city, in the Bronx, when it was time to grade Regents essays, they would bring us all to these locations, and these people would grade essays all day in teams, and it was crazy. But long story short, some of the people that were grading these essays weren't totally familiar with the documents that were contained in the question, which is troubling. So if they've never read any of the documents and they're just trying to grade the essay, they're not going to know what information comes from a document and what information comes from your brain. So they don't know how to count pieces of document evidence. So by putting in a practice like this, where we're kind of using parentheses and saying, okay, document 3, we're telling the reader, here's one of those pieces of document evidence, and make no mistake about it, my essay includes document evidence. So this is a good strategy to use. If you don't want to use this kind of parentheses system where you throw the quote in and then just put the document number in parentheses after the quote, you could start your sentence with something like, according to document 2, or document 3 states, or something like that. And this will ensure that your document evidence stands out in your essay, and we make it clear that you are using the document evidence. So as we continue talking about the structure of a DBQ, the analogy that we will use is like building a DBQ essay is like building a house. So building your house, the first and most important thing about building your house is you must have a solid foundation upon which to build the rest of the structure. In our analogy, the document evidence in your DBQ essay serves as that solid foundation that we could build the rest of the essay on top of. Without document evidence as the foundation, the rest of the structure will be unstable and crumble. Same with your essay. Okay, your essay is only as good, as the document evidence that is contained in it. Okay, so we have to start with document evidence and build on top of that. That's the important thing to understand. So next slide. Okay, I'll give you a second. Okay, next important part of your DBQ essay is you have to have document evidence, and then the next thing you need is outside information. So outside information is essentially any and all information related to the topic that is not included in the documents. So we need to think of outside information as an opportunity for you to show off how much you know about the topic. Outside information is not really analysis, and we'll talk about that in a minute. It's not really analytical, but it's more of a list of facts that relate to the topic. So, for example, if I'm reading a document and the document says one color of the rainbow is red, and that's the document. When I write my essay, I'll say, according to document number 1, one color of the rainbow is red. And that's my document evidence. And then I might go on to say, other colors of the rainbow include orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. That second sentence is the outside information. Okay, the document talked about the color red being a part of the rainbow, and I am bringing in orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet into the essay. Now, that's certainly related to the topic, the colors in the rainbow, but it is not information that's provided as evidence in that document. It's something that I'm bringing in from outside of those documents through my own knowledge. And that's really what outside information is all about. So the more outside information you have, the better. Like we said, this is an opportunity for you to show off how much you know about a particular topic. But it can typically kind of read as like a list of facts. It's not very complex. It's just, hey, this and that, and also this, and this is another characteristic. So it's not really super deep critical thinking that we're doing or analytical writing. It's really just rattling off all the things we know about a particular topic. So if we go back to our analogy about, our DBQ essay and, it being similar to the way a house is built, if the document evidence is the foundation upon which the house is built, the outside information is the walls of that house. So now we're starting to kind of put things together, and it's starting to look more like shelter, like a legit structure. So we have the foundation, the document evidence, and then building on top of that document evidence, we have the outside information. So we have related information that's not contained in the documents. So, I think it's clear that we're on our way here, but this is still not something that we would like to live in, seeing as how it has no roof and we are exposed to the elements. So that being the case, we will kind of go over one of the last elements here. And I'll give you a second here. Okay, so the last important component of a DBQ essay, we've gone over document evidence, we've gone over outside information. Last but not least, analysis. What is analysis is a tricky question. It can be answered correctly in a lot of different ways. That's the best way I can describe it. So for our purposes, we will define analysis as an explanation of your information that goes beyond a restatement of the facts. So basically what you're doing is you're telling someone what, how and why is a certain thing important? What does it have to do with anything else? Another good definition that a student of mine used a year or two ago was that analysis can be an inference about the topic based on information you've discussed. So it's kind of what you can infer about the topic. And I know this sounds, kind of difficult to understand. Analysis is also might be hypotheticals. So we might say, if this never happened. So for example, if we know that, the dinosaurs were wiped out as a result of an asteroid hitting Earth, or we'll just use this fictional thing, although maybe not fictional, but, if we, analysis might be like, if this asteroid never hit Earth, then dinosaurs may be still roaming the Earth. So that's kind of analysis at its most basic form, but you see what I'm doing here. I'm saying if this never happened. So I'm drawing an inference based on things that we know about the topic. And we'll talk a lot more about analysis. And, it is by far the hardest part of writing a good DBQ essay. So it is something that we will work together on. In the early stages, it is something that I will help you through. I have a ton of analysis sentence starters, and we will talk more about it. But the important thing to understand is what New York State explains to people that grade the Regents is that good essays are more analytical than descriptive. So while the document evidence and the outside information certainly does need to be present there, a good DBQ is more analytical than descriptive. So there's more analysis in it than really just describing things and rattling off, a list of related things. So we will talk more in the future about what analysis is, how it works, and how to incorporate it. But at this point, analysis is the roof of our house. So if the document evidence is the foundation and the outside information is, the walls, the analysis is the roof, and now we have a whole house. So it's important to understand that all three of these things are, equally critical to have in your essay, and your essay is kind of incomplete unless it has all three of these things. And that's the important thing that I want you guys to understand. This here is the task, and it's kind of the introduction to the essay that we are going to write. We have about 10 minutes left in class, so I just wanted to, begin to go over what's being assigned here. Every task page has what's called a historical context. Okay, so it basically sets the stage for the essay and tells you, the writer, what is the topic that we are kind of looking at here. It doesn't, tell you what you have to do, but it tells you what the topic is. And we can see from our historical context, during the Paleolithic era, human beings were mostly concerned with gathering enough food in order to stay alive. The Neolithic Revolution represented a major change in the way people lived, allowing them to establish permanent settlements and begin true civilizations. So just by reading the historical context, I can kind of tell that this is going to be about some kind of comparison between, Paleolithic era and Neolithic era. So if you, move on, task, using information from course materials and your knowledge of social studies, write an essay in which you discuss how people lived during the Paleolithic era and how the Neolithic Revolution changed the way of life for human beings. So it seems like my assumption was correct. This task is asking me to kind of compare and contrast life before the Neolithic Revolution to life after. And then the task gives us a couple of bullet points here. Bullet point 1, discuss life during the Paleolithic era. And bullet point 2, discuss how life changed as a result of the Neolithic Revolution. So if you think back to our lesson about kind of breaking down the task when we looked at the historical professions writing piece, we said that the bullet points oftentimes correspond to the number of body paragraphs that your essay should have. So judging by this task and using that kind of measurement, it seems like this essay should have 2 body paragraphs. First body paragraph discussing life during the Paleolithic era. Second body paragraph, discuss how life changed as a result of the Neolithic Revolution. After that, the task page will, give you a couple of other pointers usually. Be sure to include evidence from at least 4 documents. So the task page is telling us how many documents we need to use. So for this DBQ, we will need 4 different pieces of evidence from 4 documents. That's the important part. If you choose to use 2 different pieces of evidence from the same document, that only counts as using 1 document. So you need to make sure you're using evidence from at least 4 different documents, okay? All aspects of the task must be developed, incorporate analysis of content, use a clear and logical organization with an intro, and the important part, a conclusion that strengthens and clarifies your position. Okay, so that's kind of what we're being asked to do. Okay, sounds easy enough, sounds basic enough. How is it going to be graded? Now, I told you guys that I'm going to share with you the rubric for each individual writing assignment. So for our writing assignment, for this writing assignment, this is what we will use. There's a score of 0 to 2, and there's 2 different aspects. There's content and there's convention. So let's take them one at a time. Content is essentially what is contained in the essay. What is the information that you're working with? What kind of information are you presenting? Is it document evidence? Is it outside information? Is it analysis? Are you including all of these things that you're talking about? Are you addressing all aspects of the task? Okay. This is how we kind of factor into that. So if you look, you'll be scored anywhere from 0 to 2, including half points, on how well you cover all the content that you should. So in order to get a score of 2, you need to, all aspects of the task are addressed in your essay, all relevant outside information is included, and the essay contains multiple elements of analysis. Writing uses the correct number of documents. So in order to score 2, we need all of those things in our essay. If you look at, a score of 1.5 and what that looks like, all aspects of the task are addressed, but some relevant outside information is missing. So maybe you address all aspects of the task, but you're a little short on details, okay? Or analysis is missing from one body paragraph. So maybe you don't have, any analysis in one paragraph, but you do the other. That could get you a 1.5. Or maybe you do have analysis, but you're short on details. That can get you a 1.5 for content, okay? And you can kind of go over this, yourself as you look. I just wanted to kind of draw your attention to what the distinctions are between the different scores, 2, 1.5, 1.5, etc. The other aspect of the grading rubric is the conventions and mechanics category. So if you can see, in order to get a score of 2, your essay needs to be clearly written with no errors in grammar or punctuation. The essay is logically organized, which is something else that people mentioned. And the conclusion goes beyond a restatement of the introduction. So you're bringing a little something extra with the conclusion. So that's kind of what you need to do to get a 2. To get a 1.5, it's very similar. Clearly written with no errors in grammar or punctuation. Essay is logically organized, but the conclusion simply restates the intro. So right away, the thing we could see is that the difference between a 2 and a 1.5 for this essay is that in the 1.5, your conclusion does not go beyond the intro. You don't have anything extra in there. Okay, and you can kind of read through the rest of this yourself. And this is like the first part of this assignment that I want to kind of digest. I want to just make you guys aware of what the kind of task is going to be and exactly how you're going to be graded on it. It's very, very important, like I mentioned before, that you guys understand exactly how you're being graded so that you can use the scoring rubric as a blueprint toward writing the essay. As always, if you have any questions about the rubric or how it's applied, how it's being used, or what some of the language in that rubric means, feel free to address that question either in the form of sending me an email, or you could ask it in the chat box or in any one of our meets, etc. Chances are, if you have one of those questions, there's probably other people that have questions similar to yours. So hearing the answer to your question may be beneficial to people other than just you. So always something to keep that in mind.